So going kind of down that path a little bit more, Sean, and talking about the data. So the data side of what manufacturers are seeing and needing and using. I don't think we've actually, so we have talked about data for dozens of hours on this show. So it'll surprise none of our listeners, but I don't think we have particularly kind of touched on the data side, like what data manufacturers are using or not using in the reshoring theme. So you talk to a lot of manufacturers, you've been supporting them for many years. Are you finding that companies that are looking to reshore are seeing the value of the data that they have or the data that they need to collect in order to make decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So and again, let's not even talk about manufacturing solutions for a second. I think any manufacturing business right now has to look at all of the data that's available and really utilize it when they make the decisions, the strategic decisions like reshoring. Because again, not even talking about how they build the product yet. Supply chain is such a challenge right now, and finding good trained people and keeping your people is such a challenge right now. And you have to be able to minimize the impact on your business that negative impacts supply chain can have, and the negative impacts on your business that personnel issues can have, to the best of your ability. And to do that, you need data, right? So you need to analyze, who is your market? What is the product you're providing? Very, very basic stuff, but not at the level, but it's not basic at the level of how do I ensure that I can have the most robust manufacturing process where I'm getting the parts at the right time, where I have, the amount of people I can get, because that's really the issue with personnel these days. How many people can I get to work in my factory? It's not, offering the jobs is easy. Getting the people is hard. If I'm only going to get 100 people, how can I build this with 100 people? So how much automation do I need versus how much, humans do I need? All of that needs to go in the decisions you make for growing and scaling. So, that at the high level is critical. Then once you get into the manufacturing, your manufacturing processes have to be a reflection of that bigger strategy. So if you decide you need this much automation because you're only going to get this many people, how do you keep that automation, fed, flexible? Most reshoring efforts or many reshoring efforts are around supporting a local market. Those local markets often require a higher mix than if you're having a super center in China or something that was just going to build this widget, model A, a billion of them a year. That's much easier than building, 50 different models for a specific market. So again, how do you manage something that's, flexible as opposed to custom automation, which used to be very rigid, that could only build that model A. So it all factors in, and then take it a step further into the microcosm and then the data on your line, because you're doing potentially higher mix kind of manufacturing, you now need to be productive with that. So you might have a fault or an error on every third product of a build you only build occasionally, and you may not notice it because you're only building it twice a month. Well, with the right kind of data, you might realize, well, you're having that same fault and error on 6 other products that use that same part, or it's placed by that same operator or placed on that same section of the cell. And you could only see that if you had good data or a team of people crunching the data or software that did that for you. So suddenly tracking that massive amount of data and much more complexities, but having it presented in a way that's usable and actionable in real time, that's what's going to decide whether you're competitive or not. So when your reshoring effort comes in, it's not as simple as we want to build for the local market. It's so much more, but it's more intelligent than the broad stroke, let's send it to China or let's bring it back from, Vietnam. It's bigger than that. It's far more detailed and data driven.
And it's a fairly complex if I may, maybe add to your response, Sean. It's a fairly complex problem, getting the right data, as you said, getting data that's actionable, making sure that it gets to the right stakeholders so that they can actually improve the process and make the right decision. It's a very, I would say, difficult problem that a lot of I would say companies have been trying to tackle, and hopefully, again, with the, as you mentioned, lack of personnel, issues in supply chain, it becomes more and more important to have that key information so that we could make decisions in, again, near real time, or I guess as quickly as we can, so that we could resolve these issues and make sure that the throughput is